it, I see.
So thank you again for taking your time to have this interview with me. And my very first question for you is, if you have to describe yourself using 3 words, they would be?
Creative, passionate about what I do, and goofy. Even though I'm, drawn to darker material, I think I'm a pretty silly person, lighthearted, all that.
Could you talk about your journey of writing Sightless?
Yeah, so I had the beginning of the movie in my head a long time ago. The idea of, I was thinking in terms of how to sell a script to keep it really contained, and I thought, what's the smallest space in which I could set a story? And I thought if you took away somebody's eyesight, that you could feel pretty trapped inside your own head. And so I thought if we told the entire movie from the perspective of a blind person, that could be pretty cool, where what appears on screen couldn't necessarily be trusted. But I only had the beginning of the movie in my head for a long time, and that idea was kicking around. I never really knew what to do with it. And then years later, the pretty sizable twist that happens during the movie came to me, and then I thought, okay, I've got a movie. And then a couple months later, I had written the first draft, or a solid draft, enough that we went out with that one. It was picked up by producers. That script was then optioned for a year and a half, but another director was attached, and then that project was never made. So when that option expired and I then owned my own script again, I decided to make a short film, and then that got the ball rolling pretty quickly, in terms of selling that project again with me attached as the director. And then 2 years from making the short film, we were shooting the feature.
What research did you do when writing Sightless?
So I looked up all sorts of videos about people who have lost their sight, and just did a lot of reading and interviews. And a family friend is somebody who coaches people, or she works with people who have lost their sight, and then teaches them how to reintroduce themselves back into their life and their workspace. And so I thought she was a really valuable resource as well. Later, as the script got going, I did reading more on PTSD and how that can affect your mood and cognition, and how awful it is, because the character in this movie certainly goes through that. So yeah, all sorts of research. And then and that was always kind of ongoing. It was from the beginning up until through shooting, really. Yeah.
On average, how many draft scripts did you find yourself writing until you were happy and satisfied with your work?
I guess it's really hard for me to figure out even how many drafts I do on something, because I'll rework a couple pages, then I consider that kind of to be a new draft. I think overall, maybe maybe it's like a dozen. It sort of depends on the project, because with this one, the first script that I had optioned, I wrote it in, finished it in 3 months, and that felt very much like a first, or maybe a second or third draft that went out. But it wasn't reworked a ton before it sold. And then there's a million drafts that follow. So I don't, it's hard to kind of quantify.
What was the hardest thing about writing Sightless?
I think, I had the beginning of the movie in my head for a while, but I didn't know where to take the story. So it was just letting it cook and present itself to me, which happened years later, where I thought, okay, here's the rest of where the story could go. And yeah, so I think, I mean, that was the toughest thing. Once that clicked into place, then, we were moving along. Yeah.
So what do you find, what do you want viewers to get out of watching Sightless?
The same thing I want from any thriller, which is just to feel suspense. I want to feel like we solved a mystery and survived something intense, and that there's a puzzle there to solve. And but yeah, it's really all about suspense. I just want you to feel like you went on a good thrill ride.
Could you tell me about your experience with the cast members? Would you like to share like your experience with them?
Yeah, I mean, everybody in the cast was really great, was really dedicated, professional, excited to be making a movie. Madeline in particular, of course, is every single, she's in nearly every frame of the movie. There's no parts of the story that happen without her or outside of her perspective. So it was a lot of work for her, and she was, really great, as you can see in the end product, but totally committed. It was a lot of work, that she had really no breaks at all. And I was, really impressed with what she could do. And everybody did a great job. Alex Koch, who plays Clayton, was, just really fascinating to watch as well, and how they played off of each other. So it was exciting, and for it being my first movie, I lucked out, with with such a cool cast.
Did you always wanted to be a screenwriter or a director growing up? Also, who inspired you while you pursued your dream?
Yeah, I in high school decided to start taking it seriously. That I think sophomore year is when I decided, okay, I'll go to film school. That's when I started writing scripts and thought, this is what I want to do. I thought directing is something I would do much later, but I got tired of scripts I was writing. They weren't getting made, so I decided to try something else. And then the stuff that inspired me is, not exactly original. It's all like the Steven Spielberg movies we grew up with, and Star Wars and Alfred Hitchcock. And when I was a little bit older, but it's all that got me excited and thinking about how to do this myself. Yeah.
Did it hurt?
What?
Your eyes. Losing them.
I didn't lose them.
Your sight. I mean...
I didn't lose anything. It was taken from me.
I didn't mean... I should probably...
How'd you know I ever had my sight?
I didn't. It's... Just I wondered who put those bruises there. You're right. It's none of my business.
Oh, I didn't say that.
No. I'm making another mess.
What do you mean mess?
It's nothing. It's nothing.
What do you mean mess?
You heard me scream. My husband goes out of town sometimes and I get sad.
You're shaking.
And I'm just curious, what's your favorite Spielberg movie or Hitchcock?
Well, Jurassic Park had a huge impact on me, because I was a kid when that came out, and I was in 4th grade, and that's all anybody talked about. And it's also a really big, scary movie, and they actually don't make many big, scary movies. It's usually like lower budget horror and whatnot. So I think that movie is still really kind of special and rare. But I like Psycho and The Birds and yeah, love Hitchcock. And then, Star Wars was a huge thing too, which is everybody. But yeah.
If any fiction character was to come alive and hang out with you, what would that person be?
Yeah, it would probably be like a Spielberg character again. Something that that we probably both grew up with, like Indiana Jones. Somebody who's traveled and has lots of interesting, weird stories. But yeah, something that I probably grew up with, a character like that.
So could you tell me an interesting fun fact about your experience directing Sightless?
Yeah. One thing that was kind of funny about shooting it was all done on a set that we built, which was great. So we could control, you know, whether it was day or night or raining outside. And, you know, then because the movie was shot in it was only shot in 14, 15 days, really accelerated schedule, a lot less time than a lot of movies have. So it was important to control, you know, that environment. If we were shooting in a real apartment, we might be waiting on the sun or not be able to shoot, you know, pick up stuff from the daytime once it got dark, or it would certainly be a little more tricky. But one thing that was funny is shooting in that stage was kind of like in a casino. There were no clocks and no sense of the outside world. So, whatever it was outside, we tended to make it the opposite inside. So if it was raining in LA that day, it was a sunny day for us on set. Or if it was a sunny, hot day outside, we had a gloomy and rainy Seattle nighttime inside. So it was always just kind of jarring for everybody to step back outside from, you know, shooting to go to lunch or whatever. And it was we never, you know, it kind of messed with our, you know, sense of what was going on that day. So I thought that was funny.
So if you could adapt any like novel or novella or any short story, which one would you do?
I was reading, okay, so I'm a big fan of, just because since we were talking about Jurassic Park, the screenwriter David Koepp. He's had a huge career, and I think he gets a lot of, you know, unwarranted criticism. But he's written a lot of great big blockbusters. And his new movie is called You Should Have Left, with Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried. And I just watched it the other day, and it's always interesting for me to see a huge screenwriter direct, and he's directed plenty of movies. But the short story that was based on, I read a year or so ago, and I thought it was really cool because it's about a house that mathematically doesn't make sense, you know, and it was in the movie a little bit. I wish it was in the movie more, where the Kevin Bacon character starts to measure the house's angles and they don't add up, and a room is 20 feet wide on the inside, the same wall is 25 feet on the outside. And so I thought that story, if I'd come across it, would have been really something to inspire me to make my own version of it, or try to run with a story like that. But any one that has kind of a weird little intellectual puzzle at the heart of it is something that I'm drawn to. Same case with Sightless, you know, there was a lot of challenge and problem solving needed in terms of how to tell the story. So that one off the top of my head, even though it's been made, you know, yeah.
Okay, so this is my last question. This is a fill in the blank question. So here goes. If I wasn't afraid, I would.
So I don't know how to answer that, but I have an answer that kind of applies. I've never directed anything other than a few little music videos, some small ads, and the short film that this movie is based on. But I decided to do it instead of writing, or in addition to writing, after many years, because it scared me, because I thought, I am afraid to do this is the exact reason I should. And I'm so glad I did, because I'm proud of, you know, I'm happy with the end result. But it, you know, I guess I don't know how to answer if I weren't afraid, because if I am afraid, then I know that's the reason to do something, branch out, try something new. I didn't seriously entertain the idea that I would fail, but the reality is I could have, and it would have been pretty depressing to find out, oh, I'm really not, you know, suited for this, or not interested in it, or it just didn't work. So you know, it did scare me, and now I'm, you know, very proud of our little movie.
The chemicals that you were exposed to left your optic nerve intact, but seared. And I'm so sorry to say this, but the damage is irreversible.
In your virgin state of being sightless, perception won't always be reality.
What color is she? baby blue.
Let yourself adjust to your new world.
I graduated top of my nursing class. I'm the Ferrari of personal care. Your eyes won't ever be what they were, but once the rest of you heals, you won't need them to.
Hello?
You know I was gonna tell you again.
I heard her scream. She came to me frightened.
Don't trust anyone.
Someone broke in here.
Your senses have gone into overdrive.